I love having conversations with people who are behind multiple games and can kind of see from behind the scenes.
My journey in the gaming industry actually started 17 years ago at GameForge, a leading free-to-play publisher, and having all these problems and issues launching games and operating large games.
Today I'm joined by the CTO of Nitrado, who's spent 17 years building the backbone of online games. Nitrado is the world's leading game server hoster behind GameFabric and SteelShield, which powers some of the biggest multiplayer launches in games history. He's helped studios like Last Epoch survive 150,000 player surges, fight off DDoS attacks, and keep games alive when success hits faster than expected.
One very, very important lesson, and I only can repeat myself multiple times, is do performance and load tests globally in every infrastructure. People tend to forget to test these kind of services. You need to be able to scale everything needed in order to operate your game.
What we talk about in today's playbook is why most studios plan for launch but not for scale, how infrastructure works in the games industry, and the steps to take for a successful multiplayer launch.
I truly believe that playing together with people is an essential success factor for games nowadays. Looking at past 20, 30 years of gaming, I mean, this is the development which made gaming big.
From someone who spent 17 years building the backbone of online games, this episode's guest, Felix Oechsler. Felix, welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really excited. I love having conversations with people who are behind multiple games and can kind of see from behind the scenes. So really excited about this conversation because we're going to get into the big games, right? Hundreds of thousands of players. So for people who don't know, a quick intro to what you do and also Nitrado and GameFabric, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Felix, currently CTO at Nitrado since 5 years. My journey in the gaming industry actually started 17 years ago at GameForge, a leading free-to-play publisher. I started as an engineer and worked my way up the ladder. And to be honest, I had such great experiences during these 17 years with working with so much studios and with games and launching games and having all these problems and issues launching games and operating large games. So this was quite a journey until today. And by joining Nitrado, actually a fundamental thing which was a part of my previous career at GameForge is to help studios launch their games and operate it on large scale, right? And worldwide and in global infrastructure. And this became basically my passion also over the last years. And with joining Nitrado, this became reality. So I was in the position to, we work with really large studios like Studio Wildcard, Bohemia, and later on 11th Hour Games and CCP nowadays. So this became something where I was able to pour all my experiences into what we have today, and also work with all the great people at Nitrado to build something truly unique in the game server hosting industry, right? And we call it GameFabric, and GameFabric is an orchestration platform for studios and publishers to operate their game servers on global scale, right? And best thing at GameFabric is that you actually you are in control of everything, right? We developed GameFabric, or we started to develop GameFabric 3.5 years ago, and when we started that journey, we sat down and thought, okay, we don't want to actually build another hosting platform, right? So we want to build something which brings true value to game developers and publishers, and therefore we centralized all our thought around the game developer, and that was
Beautiful.
always our center thought when we developed the features, the platform, and this basically is a fundamental part of our thinking today.
Let's get into it then. So I'll be kind of role playing. I'm not a game developer, right?
Okay.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who want to understand what could go wrong, what has gone wrong, and maybe things that they could avoid, or kind of also learn more about how this stuff works. Like I was in my prep for this podcast, I found out that DDoS is apparently very expensive. I thought it was just a server problem. Yeah, like little stuff like this. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into it. So for people at home, we're going to dig into what happens when a game kind of blows up unexpectedly and the things that happen on the back end. So this will be useful for anyone who's maybe making an indie game. You are probably preparing for success. We should also know what happens when that happens.
Course,
Also, for the people who are in studios now, what happens when you add a 0 to the player count or like add 10 zeros to the player count?
Yeah.
There are things that happen, and sometimes they find out probably a bit too late or once they're in the thick of it. So the idea is to kind of paint that picture. So let's get started.
Okay. All right.
So we were chatting before the podcast, like one of the biggest examples of a game kind of blowing up and the things that happen, and you were there for that. So I'd love to take us to the moment of like Last Epoch, like when live and the number counts playing out. Like, can you set the scene for us there? I would love to dig into kind of maybe there's some lessons we can learn from that.
Yeah, sure. And then this is obviously a very great example of things blow up in a positive way. But in order to explain what we did there together with the studio is we need to take some steps back and have a review of actually the road to launch, right? Because how we work is not the way we provide you the platform, the access, and the API keys and whatnot, and then you go by yourself and you host a game, and then you have fun launching a game. This is not the way we work with studios and publishers or devs. We actually work very closely with our partners. So this is also a fundamental core piece of our strategy. So we are not the offhand platform provider. We are the really supporting partner you have at hand, launching and make your game successful, right? And actually, we started to work with 11th Hour Games way before the launch. And we sat together and said, okay, this game will be a huge success, and we all were very convinced that this will be a success. So we prepared for success, and there were several parts of the preparation, and one part is obviously the basic stuff, right? We need to estimate, okay, how much base capacity we want to have, and when I speak about base capacity, I mean you have these different layers or levels of capacity. You have a bare metal capacity, which is cheap and operating, which does not cost a lot, where traffic is cheap, where the operating the platform is cheap as well. But then you have the scale options with hyperscalers, and this is always not that cheap like bare metal, right? With bare metal, you have the full core performance, and in cloud, you always need to look for the performance you get provided by the hyperscalers and the individual core performance, and also noisy neighbors and all these things. So you need to plan ahead, right? And when working with studios, we always keep in mind that we want to be as cost efficient as possible, right? But not to sacrifice quality. So we sat down.
Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So for people at home, like when they're thinking about developing their game, and are they even thinking about this stuff? Like how soon in the process does this happen? Like you mentioned bare metal, you mentioned hyperscalers. From the people I speak to, I just hear, oh yeah, we'll plug into. They don't actually think about it as something very conscious. But from my understanding, when does the game developer start or should start thinking about kind of this problem? It should be at the very start. Should be once they know if the game's going to be a success. Like we paint a picture of like, what should I do here with this information?
Yeah, so in my opinion, you should plan this as early as possible. So a decision for a platform needs to be an early decision, because only when you are aware, okay, that's the capabilities of the platform, you can also plan ahead. Okay, this is the possibilities I have. This will be the cost if my game is successful. So this is something you need to really have your thoughts in the beginning, because otherwise you will end up being on a platform which is ridiculously expensive when you launch the game and scale, and then switching platforms during launch times or whatever, this will be a nightmare.
Avoid it
right?
at all costs.
Yeah. So our strategy is definitely we want to be part of the development process of the game as early as possible, because we see us as I said, as a partner and a consultant, right? So we want to build this thing together, and that's why we aim to being part of as early as possible. And I would recommend everybody who is developing a game with the plans to be a global hit, make your decisions for a platform early, talk to people who have experience in scaling infrastructure and servers. So this is a fundamental decision you will not change easily after you have launched.
Right. So in the Last Epoch example, like, is any lessons learned there from like the days things started to blow up?
Definitely. So lessons learned, or one very, very important lesson, and I only can repeat myself multiple times, is do performance and load tests globally in every infrastructure, right? So when we were previous or prior launch of Last Epoch, we did massive scale tests around the world with different providers, with different hosting environments. So we were actually simulating thousands of players and game servers in order to be sure, okay, platform is stable, hosting providers deliver what they need to deliver, and the game server actually itself is scalable, and the backends as well. So this is also a very important part. What you really need to test, it's not only hosting game servers worldwide and then scale them to 100, 200,000 or whatever. It's also test your backends, right? It's not only game servers which you need to scale. There are multiple supporting services around game servers, right? Server list, matchmaking servers, logins, lobbies, or whatever. And people tend to forget to test these kind of services.
What goes wrong if that does?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
mean, if you imagine, you invested a lot of time in testing the global scale of your game server, so you're confident, okay, my game servers can handle 2, 3, 400,000 players in parallel. My infrastructure is ready. But you never tested the let's say the server list where everybody comes together and selects a match or a server. This service was not tested. This service is not scaled, right? And you are not sure how many requests is that service able to handle. So this is something we see regularly, that these kind of services are forgotten because everybody only focuses on infrastructure, scaling, game servers, whatever. But actually, the central piece of your game infrastructure, where everybody connects first, or logins, or searches for matches, this is sometimes forgotten, and this is a key lesson learned of the past 20 years.
Beautiful. So in this example where the game's blowing up, I'm wondering how granular we can get here. Like, how important? Let me phrase this differently. So when you're, I'm guessing, speaking to all these studios who are looking to kind of look for a new partner, like, do they have this mistaken belief about how these things work? Like, I wonder if we can break some beliefs today where they think it works a certain way, but actually, when they actually get involved, they realize, oh, that's actually very different than what they expected. And I want to make people understand at home, like, hey, don't wait to the last minute to find out that this is the case. Like, is there any big mistakes that you hear over and over again?
I mean, what I just mentioned is something which people tend to forget over and over again. But maybe, and one example is, and this is also something people tend to forget, is, let's imagine your game is very successful. You scale globally with hundreds of thousands of game servers running in parallel, and all of these game servers create logs. So what happens in the session? And they're writing logs, and you actually you have a central piece of software which collects all the logs, and suddenly the things blows up because this central component as well was not prepared for scale, right? So and this is only one example. You can extend that example to any kind of infrastructure component you need to operate processes or services on the infrastructure. You need to not only be able to scale game servers, you need to be able to scale everything needed in order to operate your game. And this is logging systems, monitoring systems, metric collecting systems, right? You need to be aware of, okay, if things go way beyond what I have planned with, then we need to actually scale everything. And then it also comes down to, okay, if you have a monitoring system which collects all the logs and stores all the data, you need to be very careful when it comes to costs, right? So this can easily also blow up your bill if this is not really well designed or scaled or built up with a provider which is capable of doing that.
It's taking me to maybe the existential question, like, why should I bother with a multiplayer game at this point? Because it sounds very complicated. Like, why It's interesting because a lot of the games I see, at least on YouTube, are ones which are at least multiplayer co-op, I guess,
Yep.
or the ones that take, at least for me, mind share, as in the games I see spoken about. There's a multiplayer element, but
Yep.
this sounds like it's a big cost involved. I'm wondering, like, should people be making multiplayer games? Like, what's your thoughts on, like, how many? Do you feel like there's a shortage of multiplayer games? I'm wondering, like, what's your point of view on this? Like, should people be making more multiplayer games?
Definitely. And it's not only because this is our business, but it's also my true belief, right? So coming from the old MMO world, like World of Warcraft and all these different kind of games, and now being in a world where fast-paced, session-based games are the only thing people play at the moment. So I truly believe that playing together with people is an essential success factor for games nowadays. And it's not only because you have that competitive parts, right? When we look at Battlefield 6, which got released some weeks ago, I mean, everybody's playing that at the moment. Even myself is playing that nearly every evening. And what I really like about such games is, okay, you can actually play with your friends. You can skill up with your friends together, right? You have your squad. You can have your missions. You can have your sessions which you join. I think this is, and yeah, looking at the past 20, 30 years of gaming, I mean, this is the development which made gaming big, right? And
Mhm.
when I look at games like Arc, for example, or Minecraft, where user-generated content is a very, very big thing. This is my true belief that users can create their own content, their own custom worlds. I think this is truly a accelerator for multiplayer games in the future. Because imagine you build your map, you build your custom style thing within a game, and you can show it to your friends. Your friends can interact with it. Your friends can play together with you on your own island, in your own structures. I think this is the essential part of multiplayer and why it's so successful, right?
Yeah, no, I'd agree for sure. Like, it's funny. I watch a lot of RuneScape. So I used to play a lot of
Yeah.
time on RuneScape, like over a year playtime of my life, something crazy. And it's funny, the content I'm watching is like people make their own game modes in the game. And there's like a whole
Yep.
new reason to play. And then there's people involved. They make their own game shows in the game because it's like not that much of a sandbox element, but you can just place rules and then play it in a different way, right? And I feel like because you can play with other people and there's competition involved, it makes it a decade 20-year plus game. Like for Minecraft or RuneScape, the
Yep.
ability to play with someone else means there's some competitive nature. And unless it's a game, I feel like if it's a single player game, the only way it lasts is if it becomes an awesome speedrunning game. That's what I
Mhm.
feel anyway. Otherwise, you pay it once and then it kind of leaves the zeitgeist.
Exactly.
Otherwise, if you're a multiplayer game, it gives you the ability to keep playing and playing. It's all right. I've kind of completed the game, but I can just add a new rule now, a whole new way
Exactly.
to play it, right?
Yeah.
And we go again.
Yeah. And this is what keeps games alive, right? It's
Sure.
uh, obviously the developer or publisher still needs to publish content from time to time because people love that. But people who create their own content, they keep the game alive. And this is what we see with all the successful franchises out there. They all have this kind of basic model within their games.
So the thing I never really understood was the cost of all of this. So there's been some evolution with server tech, I'm guessing, over the last 10 years. Like you have your new product. You mentioned some terms before, and I want to, for maybe someone who's new in the industry or just love to hear your take on this. So I would love to break down kind of, okay, how do I, as a studio, pay money to solve this problem? So this is my rudimentary understanding. I'd love for you to either correct it and fill in some gaps. So hyperscalers are like AWS or the other version of that. I think Google probably have a version where I can just pay and rent by the hour, like server cost, and I
Yeah.
can plug in and then I'll have a bill. Cool. And bare metal, as the name implies, is a physical server that I'm either renting or buying. I don't know if it's on the studio floor. And I'm just like, all right, now I own this piece of servers and I'm paying a fixed cost and it will do as much as it can. The hyperscaler, I can do basically pay as you go phone contract, but then the other one is like I'm paying for that amount. So other than that, okay, I'd love to understand, is that true? Is this how it
Yeah.
works? And also, what's the cost involved? Because if I'm paying $60 for a game, but it's got multiplayer for 5 years, am I paying for that user? Like, I might even lose money on the game. Maybe is that why like people
Mm.
close servers down? I'm just very curious about the business of servers. Could you break that down for me?
Yeah, sure. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, hyperscalers were not that big in gaming,
Hmm.
and everybody was renting out machines and did everything by their own, right? They had their own engineering teams. They invested a lot of time and efforts to build their own automation, scripting, orchestration systems, and with the evolution of platforms and technologies and also hyperscalers, this change, right? And I mentioned in the beginning, when it comes to cost planning or costs in general, it's very important for us to educate people. Hey, let's have a realistic look on the outlook of your game, right? How many players you expect, how many servers you expect, and then let's have a very cheap in brackets, but a very cheap bare metal base capacity, right? And we help you, or in general, if you speak to bare metal providers like us, and others, we always strive for, okay, what is actually your requirement? What do you really need? So what we aim is, we don't want to sell you the biggest box we have in our inventory. We want to have a tailored machine which fits your requirements, right? And this is how we work together with studios. We plan the base capacity around the world. So we have, let's say, we can host 10,000 CCUs on our base capacity. But then when you launch a new DLC or an update, then we will plan the launch weekend together, and then you will have the ability to scale into a hyperscaler of your choice, right? And but only for that weekend. And the charming thing about our platform is, you as a studio, you can choose, or you can decide by yourself how cost aware or risk aware you want to be. So you can say, okay, you have these different pools of capacity, and what we actually do is, we we put a transparent layer above the capacity, so you don't need to worry about, okay, I have that machine and this machine and the different config there or whatever. So we put a transparent layer above that, so you don't need to worry about these things. You should always worry about your game, making your game successful, building a good game. You don't need to worry about the hardware stuff. That's our part. We take care
Sure.
of that, and that's why we cover that. And you only get the bare metal capacity and the bare metal performance within one bucket, and then you have the ability to scale out to cloud, right? To extend your fleet, but always with the thought in mind. Okay, when the spike is over, you easily can scale back to bare metal and be as cost efficient as possible, right? That's how we approach that.
I got it. So, has bare metal changed over the last couple of years? Like, what's the difference? Is there a difference between your bare metal and someone else's bare metal? Should I be thinking about that? Like, what does GameFabric do? Is it doing anything
Hmm.
different compared to doing it themselves?
Yeah. So I would not say GameFabric, but when we look at infrastructure or hardware per se, we have, as I said, different layers. So we have our own co-locations worldwide. We have 10 co-locations we operate by ourselves. And these co-locations are optimized for gaming, right? So we have 20 years experience of hosting very large titles, very huge infrastructure for game servers. And these 20 years and the experience we gained during these years, this flew into the design of our co-locations. And when it's not only the server architecture we use, or CPUs, and the amount of memory in the servers, it's also the network design we build up in our co-locations. Because when you think about games, it's not only the servers, the compute box, it's also the network, which needs to be as fast and latency optimized as possible. So you want to serve everybody around the world. Everybody should be able to play your game without any lags or whatever. So you need to optimize your network. You need to optimize your internet service
When you say
providers.
you
Your
need to optimize, should the studio be thinking about this, or should they just be looking at providers that are gaming specific? Because I didn't realize they could just rent servers from companies that aren't gaming specific. It would still work. But what I'm hearing is servers by a company who only do gaming with extra efficiencies there.
Yeah. So exactly what I want to say is, of course, you can rent a server somewhere, and this will work. This is not a question. But when you work with us, with the game tailored network we operate, we always make sure to have gaming optimized network setups and capacities, especially in order to, and you mentioned that in the beginning, DDoS attacks. This is a huge problem in the gaming industry, and
Yeah, let's dig into it if you don't mind.
not only every provider, not every provider is prepared to handle DDoS attacks. So you
Could
can,
you explain a DDoS attack? Because
yeah, for sure.
I
So
think I have 10% of an understanding of
yeah,
how
I
that works.
mean, imagine it like um, you have your phone, and obviously someone can call you and can pick up, and you can talk exactly. So imagine 10,000 people want to reach you at the same time. So not everybody will get through because only one person is able to connect to you directly, and you can pick up that one person. But everybody else need to wait or is frustrated and stops calling you, right? So this is easily transferable to a DDoS attack when you think about a game server. A game server is also a piece what you want to reach with your client, and when a bad actor tries to harm you, they call your game server 1,000 times from all across the world, right? And
Do
then your
they
game,
virtually simulate that, or is this
yeah. So
because
you can basically use basic network techniques, like I'm sure you know a ping, right? ICMP ping when you ping something, and you can overload a game server or a network component easily by sending huge amount of requests, no matter which protocol or whatever. That doesn't need to be the game specific things.
Felix, I'm sorry, just understand.
Yeah.
They can go directly to the server, or do they have to like log into the game and
No,
basically
they don't.
flood the game? They don't even need
No.
to do that.
No. When you think about a Counter Strike server, so you go into the Counter Strike lobby, you see the IP of the server in the server list, and then you have the IP address of the machine the server runs on, and then you easily can attack this IP address with
Oh, that's all I need,
botnets
the
out
IP
there.
address.
Yeah, that's all you need.
I feel like they should have fixed that when they were inventing servers.
Yeah, and I mean there are obviously there are smart people out there, including us, which were faced with such a problem, right? And one really funny is maybe the wrong word, but a challenging story is so as you know, we host Arc Survival, and we are still the official hoster of Arc Survival. And 7 to 8 years ago, Arc had a huge problem with DDoS attacks because people used DDoS attacks against servers of Arc as a competitive advantage, right? So if you DDoS a server, then this server gets unresponsive and the game is not available anymore. So people started to use DDoS attacks in order to uh, uh, make the server stop working, or the machine basically the server runs on. And with that behavior, they gained advantages in the game. And then we sat down and said, okay, there needs to be a solution. And obviously, also 8 to 10 years ago, there were solutions out there. So there are big appliances which you can leverage. You can put them in the data center, and they can filter traffic for you. So they see these
Wow, it
attacks.
feels like a castle. It's like you got to put troops outside, and they got to
Yeah,
like.
exactly. So you can have these appliances within your network, and then they monitor actually the network traffic, and they see bad behavior. And
Hmm.
but the challenging thing with these appliances is always they are quite reactive. So they monitor traffic, they see bad behavior, and then they react. But in game server environments, and this is also something which is very important to remind yourself as a game developer, is it doesn't need to be a huge amount of traffic which brings down your server or your game game process, right? It also could be a malformed packet where your game server is actually receiving from the attacker and then thinks, I don't know how to deal with that packet, and I decide to die, right? And then there's only one malformed packet the game server receives, and this already can lead to a problem for the game server because nobody thought about, okay, how do we handle bad packages or whatever. So there are different kinds of attacks when we think about DDoS attacks. There are volumetric attacks. So you have that big cannon and you point it towards one IP address and then this IP address or server is gone. But there are also very tailored and focused attacks where you don't have that big cannon. So you only have, maybe you also found a small exploit in the game server which you can trigger from the outside with a malformed packet. And this was a challenge we saw 8 years ago, and we also looked at these appliances which were in the market out there, and they all were reactive. They all were very generic, and for games there was no solution. Not a fitting solution, right? Not a really tailored solution.
Because even if it's reactive, what I'm thinking is if there's a competitive game happening and you send a bunch of packets, that might be enough. Like it's lagged, it's already lagged, even if it comes back online later.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like the bad damage was happened. Like I see it all the time. Won't name the game, but like the final part of the game, great. Every single time there's a final event, there's a DDoS. It's like, well, what are you gonna do? I'm like, how can? Well, I see like a very big studio have this issue. Like, is it solvable? So I'm very curious. Like, what's the current tech?
Yeah, it's for sure solvable. Back then we sat down and we decided, okay, we need there's nothing really tailored for games out there. So let's see if we can build something by our own. So we started to build what we today call Steel Shield. So Steel Shield is a patented anti-DDoS solution tailored to multiplayer games, and the key part of Steel Shield is, of course, it's able to defend you against these volumetric attacks, right? It can detect it, it can block it, it can rate limit traffic, whatever. It's capable of doing that. But the very important part and the centerpiece of Steel Shield is a protection mode, which we call proof of identity. And with proof of identity, we implemented a solution where the game client itself first needs to authenticate against Steel Shield and say, I'm a valid client, I'm a valid player. Am I allowed to play? And then Steel Shield says, yes, of course, you are a valid player. I know your user ID. I know you are a valid client. Go ahead and play on the game server. But in the same time, Steel Shield monitors every packet which wants to reach the game server. And if there's a packet with a non-authorized identity, then Steel Shield will block that packet. So in theory, we put a guard between the client and the game server, which checks every connection. And only if it's
doesn't that solve DDoS? Like when you say everything, doesn't that just solve it? Or
it just solves the DDoS problem. We solved it for Arc Survival Evolved. We solved it for Arc Survival Scanded.
How long has this been out for? That seems like a big news, no?
8 years, but patented for 2 years now. And this is actually something true. It's unique in the industry, and the approach is unique. And we had tremendous success with various of studios. I can't mention all of them now, but a lot of studios use that technology and protect their games with that. And with Steel Shield, you actually can get rid of DDoS attacks.
What I'm thinking is, like, shouldn't every big game just use Steel Shield in this example? Like this, like is there, like, well, that's what my question is as the dev here is like, great, I don't want DDoS, I use Steel Shield. Is there an unexpected cost I should be thinking about here? Like, is there a situation where you don't use Steel Shield? Like, I'm just trying to understand if there's any catch.
In my opinion, there is no world where you shouldn't use an anti-DDoS solution like Steel Shield, right? Especially when it's easy to integrate. And with Steel Shield and GameFabric combined, it's very easy to integrate with Steel Shield because it comes out of the box. If you work with us and use GameFabric, you can also easily use Steel Shield. But if you have a multiplayer game which is competitive, which where people are dependent on the online status of the game server, in my opinion, you need to think about the DDoS problem right from the beginning. If you are in the middle of a success story and suddenly you face a lot of DDoS attacks, this will become a huge challenge to implement in a running live game, right? This is also something where we also consult our customers right from the beginning when we are part of these development phases, where we say, okay, let's talk about DDoS. What happens if your game server gets DDoS? Is it a problem? And if yes, let's work on a solution here because we have one.
So, what's the difference? Because we're obviously preparing for users being online. So, like you mentioned before, and there's DOC, there's a bunch more users. So, for example, I remember watching Fortnite streams when I was a bit younger. The day a Fortnite drop happened, everyone was queuing in to get in.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they budgeted for a certain amount of servers, and now there's a queue. But there's also a situation where I remember playing MMOs, so many people on a server, things are lagging, or so many people are in one space, things are lagging. Like, you can't prevent that, or can you? Like, when it comes to designing your game, like the lag that you experience, like, is lag all server related? Is that different? Like, I'm just trying to think, like, if I'm a studio trying to prevent lag, is it only the servers I should be looking at?
No, of course not. So the examples you mentioned is Fortnite with the queue system. This is a very smart way of preventing lag or preventing full servers, right? Because what happens in the background if they put up a queue, they scale their server infrastructure in the background. So they have autoscalers in place with hyperscalers and different platforms.
But that takes time, so that's why there's
exactly that takes a bit of time, right? So systems monitor the user demand, the CCUs, and if certain thresholds kick in, then the platform goes ahead and scales up new game server instances, so the queue can be reduced. But the queuing system actually is a smart way of telling people, hey, let's wait a second, we need to scale, and once everything is set up and ready for you, you can go in. So this is a very smart way of delaying that or setting expectations actually, right? Because back in the days when nobody used queuing systems, everybody was hammer the connect button and was not, and nobody knew, okay, why is it not working? Oh my god, everybody was frustrated. Queuing system put expectations on you, right? And that's a smart way. When it comes to different architectures like MMOs with huge servers, and then suddenly a lot of players on the server, and then it becomes laggy, can have tons of reasons, right? It could be the server software itself, which is not able to handle so many players in parallel. It could be the underlying physical machine where CPU is maxed out or memory is maxed out, wherever, or network is a bottleneck, right? Because suddenly everybody's connecting, then the network card or the connection of the game server to the internet is saturated. So there are multiple reasons for lags, and all of these scenarios, they need to optimally need to be tested before you release a game. So you need to know your limits. This is always a very important thing. Or you then need to have the capability and the tooling and the visibility to quickly see, okay, here's the bottleneck. It's CPU, or it's network up there, and a switch port is saturated, right? So you need to have the visibility across the whole environment.
I have a question for you as a gamer here. So when I play games, I just Googled now, Battlefield reverted from 128 players to 64 players. And my understanding is they didn't do that because of server reasons. It was just because the gameplay felt better at 64. And it got me thinking, okay, like on RuneScape, it was one I have the most experience with, like a server capped at 2,000. And I think other MMOs I've heard like 1,000, 2,000. I'm just curious because you're in the thick of it. Is there a theoretical limit of the amount of players you can have on a server? Like, if I'm designing a multiplayer game, should I have a player count in mind where, like, maybe make games with 50 to 100 max? Or has the tech changed where there isn't really a limit? I'm just curious. What's the limit for like the amount of players you can have in one place right now?
I wouldn't say this is a a very good question, because there is no real limit, right? So because when you design your game, you can say, okay, I want to have a world with 10,000 players playing together in that world, but how you divide that world is up to your architecture, right? For the player, it could be visible as one world, but in the background, it's actually 50,000 servers, right? But the player doesn't really see that it's 50,000 servers, because your architecture of the game and the engine is just covering that, right? And you think you are in a world with 10,000 other players, but this is actually comes down to your game design. If you want to have that, if you, as you said, right, if you want to have a match-based game where it doesn't make sense to have 10,000 people shooting at each other, you want to have very fast-paced, small matches, then it's your decision for your game design. But in the end, it really comes down to that. In my opinion, there's no real limit as soon as you have the right architecture for your game or your game servers in order to have or to build your vision.
Sure. So is there the biggest game that you guys worked on, like in terms of amount of players in one place at a time? Very curious.
I think that's definitely Last Epoch. So this is up until now the biggest environment we spin up within hours, and this was really a intense week, but yeah,
Imagine.
obviously very successful and very cool to see that everything worked out and to get the studio had that tremendous success with the game up until today. So yeah, I think that this was one of the major big launches.
Is there anything we feel like we haven't covered from a game fabric or server situation where like a game dealer should know that this exists, that maybe you find yourself repeating?
Um, Yeah, maybe. I mean, I mentioned in the very beginning that we put a lot of efforts into GameFabric to make it a developer-focused platform
Yeah, what do
and
you
not
mean by
just
that
an.
then? Like, should
Yeah.
people care
So
about that?
yeah. Because what I saw a lot in the last couple of years are just generic platforms where of course you also can host your workload there. But when we thought about GameFabric, we invested quite a lot in tooling for you as a game dev. You can integrate multiple tools in your game development environment on your development machine in order to spin up game servers right out of your IDE, for example. So this is something which we integrated quite early in the process. We thought about, okay, we work often with studios or publishers with different teams, different testing units, and QA departments, and whatever, and then dev teams who need to operate the game servers on our platform. So we adopted a environment concept very early in development, because the thing we see is, okay, you have these huge publishers and they want to bring in their QA team to test a specific version of the game on our platform, and this QA team also needs to be able to change settings on the game servers, restart
Yeah.
the game servers, and change match parameters and stuff, and this is often not possible
Oh
in
wow. So
other
that back and forth
platforms.
must take
Yeah,
ages.
so it's basically a environment concept where you have, okay, you have QA environment which with a specific version of the game or the game server, and the QA team can manage that individually, and they don't need developers or engineers to do that. And we also can make sure, okay, if you have access to GameFabric and to that specific environment, you don't have access to prod, right? So this was a very early adoption of a developer focused product, and then, of course, the testing capabilities, testing and debug capabilities is something, especially in very early phases of a game developer, you want to have, and I mentioned that earlier, you want to have the visibility of what actually happens. If I deployed that game server with that specific version in Miami in the data center, I want to see what actually is happening there. And
Yeah.
this was something which we implemented right from the beginning. And out of the box, you get metrics. You get not only the basic metrics like CPU and memory. This is something everybody provides, but we also integrate deeply within your engine, right? So we provide you also metrics which you can define by yourself. So, for example, you have your dinosaurs running around in your game server, and you want to see, okay, how many dinosaurs are running around in a specific area of my world or map. So you can expose that metric, and we display it automatically for you. This is one part, and the other part is tracing of your game server behavior. So when you launch a game server and it breaks, or it malfunctions somewhere, and you want to see, okay, what actually happens, why this happens. So we provide you with debugging capabilities within our platform, and this is also comes out of the box, so you don't need to implement anything. So we provide you crash dumps and very, very deep insights of why your process crashed, right? And you can analyze that as a game developer, and that makes it really easy for you to iterate fast, right? And this is basically some parts of our philosophy of having a developer-focused platform.
Yeah, you mentioned so many things though. Like if I'm shopping around, there's so many things to keep in mind apart from just cost, right? Like the amount of hidden costs I'm hearing, preventing a DDoS attack, maybe preventing all this back and forth with the QA team, people needing to test, capturing stuff, because if it's more intuitive to use, probably more testing will be done, right? Like it's like a mental thing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you don't really think about, and I'm guessing developers aren't thinking about either because they're probably focusing on the game, right? So I think it's important.
They should focus on the game. We should be.
Does it ever make sense
Yeah.
to have this in house in terms of like a human doing this? Because I know there's a few companies who do that, right? They have a multiplayer engineer, right?
Yeah.
Like when does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I was also one of such engineers who said, okay, let's build this in house because we know what we need, right? But so back in the days, but the more I worked with different studios and publishers and games and infrastructure and technology for games, I become aware, okay, publishers or game developers, they should not worry about the underlying technology. They should really focus on building a good game and not worry about CPUs or databases or matchmaking services or whatever. They should consume services which are operated by people who actually are experienced in doing that. And I mean, obviously, there are huge companies out there. They have huge tech teams. They have their own platforms built up, right? That this is totally fine if you want to do that. But especially as a new studio, a small studio, the cost constraints of building up engineering teams and having experts on board, let's say for Kubernetes or cloud infrastructures, these people are expensive. These people are hard to find. So you should not worry about such things.
You probably don't need them 40 hours a week either.
Yeah, in the beginning, yes. But when you launch and you're successful, you even need more of them. And then it becomes a even bigger challenge.
Yeah, for me, it reminds me of like, if I'm a company, I'm like, I don't need to pay for Jira or project management software. Let's make our own. It's like, okay, but you're now a project management software developing company.
Exactly.
Where, yes, over the long term, you might save on the thing, but like you say, at some point, something needs to change, and then you need to either hire more or there isn't enough time. So I feel like it definitely opened my eyes on kind of how this works.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, this is a journey, and obviously there are companies who said to themselves in the beginning, we will do this by ourselves. But we had a lot of examples where we saw this, and then we came in very late in the process, and we helped them to scale, right? Because the engineering teams, they were not able to do this anymore because it was just an overly complex architecture designed by themselves, and it was not based on standards or default technology.
They don't know what they don't know, right? Like you guys have done it over and over again. It's just one of those where there's some efficiencies where they can't know because I'm guessing the space evolves or what have you.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I also said already. Lessons learned is talk to people who are experienced in building up global multiplayer games. They will tell you.
The beauty is it doesn't cost anything to speak to you guys.
Exactly. You can ping me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk about all these things. But talk to people. Everybody will tell you, don't build it by yourself.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Cool. I'd love to get into Felix before we close out because your journey is quite interesting, right? You started as a multi-engineer, and now you're CTO. Kind of, we're in a situation. I like to spend a little bit of the end of the podcast to kind of give advice on kind of how people can grow as a human and as a career. So I'm wondering, what was the one thing you would tell kind of Felix maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago that you wish they knew then when it comes to like growing in their career? Is there any lessons you learned the hard way?
Definitely, and you already mentioned it. Definitely don't be a tools company. Focus on what's really important. So in my early days, I was, as you said, I was like, we can do that by ourselves.
DIY,
But
baby. Let's do it.
yeah, exactly. But this is maybe one of the biggest learnings is focus on what's important, not only on the product side or feature side. So it's really focus on your core strength, and that is you can also transfer that to me personally, right? So because I I experience that I love to work with people. I love to work with talented people and individuals who inspire me, right? And this is how I became into, or how I came into leadership 13 years ago now. And I love to develop people. I love to build up teams, structures, and all of these things. And through all that process, it became clearer that focus is, no matter where, focus is the essential thing. Focus on, okay, your team needs to focus on a specific task. You can't just overload them or whatever. You need to have a focused team. You need to have a focused company, a focused product. And I think, yeah, focus is one of my main mantras I tell myself
Yeah.
every day. Because I hate nothing more than being the person who go to my engineering teams and say, "Oh, we need these 50 things this week. Please make it somehow happen." And this will not work, right? And
Yeah.
this is something you need to really experience, in my opinion, and you need to learn that. Obviously, I can tell you that now, and you can be smart and take that advice. But in my opinion, you need to really experience that focus is
I'm going through
essential
that right
and
now,
can be a
Felix.
key success factor.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now, Felix. So it's, you're gonna laugh at me maybe, but business started in April last year, and just maybe last month I'm actually using proper project management software.
Mm.
And before it was like, we have less than 10 clients, we can just check each client's board, for example, and what's happening there. But now we have people, and it's not just me, and it's not all in here. So I'm like, all right, this needs to go somewhere. And then I'm
Yep.
realizing there's so many things we can improve. So we started doing a dashboard for our writers, for example. And what I'm realizing now, there's so many things I want to improve, and I'm the person who's like, I'll do it every day. And what started to happen, because I've got the visualization of what can be improved, a month ago, I was actually quite a chill guy. I was like, business is growing, this is going well. But now that I can see all the stuff that can be done, I'm like, I want to do everything. And then I don't do everything, or I don't do the important stuff. This is maybe too big of a question, but what do I do, man? How do I prioritize? I feel like I've done so many different prioritization techniques, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but I just want to do it now, or this thing's more shiny. Let me working on this thing. Like, I'm wondering if you've got any tips that's helped you when it comes to.
I mean,
Now that I can see all the stuff I can do, I feel like
yeah.
I'm behind when I know I wasn't behind. I don't know. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I'm in a similar position, right? I have a lot of ideas what we could do, what we could implement as features in our platforms or for our customers, but obviously it always comes down again on, okay, is that really in line with this? And this is a very important part. Is it in line with the strategy? Right.
Yeah.
So you have a strategy for yourself or for your company, and we obviously also have a strategy on what we want to achieve or where we want to be. And I always ask myself, okay, is this in line with strategy or not? And if not, okay, why I should maybe then proceed with the idea nevertheless.
Despite it, yeah.
So right there are some ideas where you then could just pivot away from your strategy because it's maybe a new adventure or whatever. But in the end, on me, it always comes down, okay, let's focus, let's sit down with my experts, and this is always something I do. I have my experts very close to me. So I talk to them, I pitch my
When you say
idea, or
experts, are these internal or do you mean like even
no,
yeah,
we have
internal?
a huge team. So we are 200 people worldwide. We have a huge engineering team, and we have there's a leadership team within
Can I ask you a
Nitrado.
tactical question, Felix? When you
Sure.
say you bring together the experts, so I'm having a situation now where I have the event side of the team because we're doing more mixes and conferences next year, and I have the content side of the team. And if I come up with an idea, I want people to feel ownership of the idea, but then
Yeah.
also I'm realizing I don't have that much time because I've got today's podcast day, tomorrow is
Yeah.
retro day, and then
Yeah.
I've got to write my content. And like the time it takes to come together and agree something, I've noticed that it started to take a lot more time than I expected. So how do you make sure that happens maybe quickly? I don't know if you've got any ways to do that.
Yeah. So when I was in a similar situation like you, where I have these teams very close to me, and I was in the daily operations all day long, and filling with all the different piece of parts. Uh, in my opinion, it's essential that you build up. Maybe leads is a big word, but if you need to have key people who are driving these individual disciplines, right? When it comes to content or events, you need to have someone, and I'm sure you have senior people in your teams where you trust. And for me, it always comes down to trust. So I have experts for all the different fields we need to work on, and I have people who I trust. And if I have an idea, or if I want to have something to get done, I go to these people and say, guys, please think about a solution for this, and that. And then I trust these people to work out the solution by themselves. So I know I don't need to care about what they actually do if the result is right, because I trust them to operate in guardrails where I definitely believe in. They have the same values, the same ways of doing things than I have, because I
So
trust them
I
a
think
lot.
you set the
And
strategy, and I'm guessing they know
yeah,
the strategy, so they're
yeah,
going to the same goal. But like I've had this situation where I want to give ownership, but then
yeah,
we get the result, and it's like, oh, if only I was involved from the start, I might have maybe helped you have this resource or this resource. And I find like I'm very hard trying to find that balance. Right now, I'm a bit too all micromanaging ish, where I'm like,
hmm
maybe try this, maybe do this. But then again, I don't want to be in there doing it. But I feel like, oh,
yeah.
this would help so much. But then the other side, I want to give full ownership because it's probably very annoying for someone to come and say, hey, try this. You know?
Yeah, this is a tough one because obviously it sounds like it's a very new team, and you're just in
Yeah,
the
new
growing
team, right?
phase of team,
7
right? So
people.
yeah, so it really comes down to get closer to each other, to align your. I mean, you need to align your thoughts. You need to be open to your people. You need to be you provide them your vision so they can actually have a chance to do the things you would do. But I definitely understand. I'm sometimes micromanaging by myself, right? This is changing from time to time, right? If you have someone who you think, okay, I now need to be close to that person because I really want to get this going, and I exactly know how this needs to be. So sometimes I'm the same way, but I think it's very important to have a balance, right? You need to make a step back, reflect. Okay, what I can me as a manager, what I can do better, or what I can provide additionally to my seniors or experts in order that they can make their job better next time. So I don't
Yeah.
have to micromanage them in the future, because this is a killer for all of us
Yeah,
if we do
I
this.
think the
We
way
are
you
not
phrase it
scalable.
is quite helpful. You're presenting new information that may help them reach the goal. So
Yeah,
it's like the framing of it, not like, hey, why didn't you do it this way? It's like, oh, by the
yeah,
way,
exactly.
here is information that is useful.
Yeah,
And also don't
and
expect them to just be able to go and find that information or know that information. I think I've done a little bit of that where it's like, oh, why didn't you try this? Well, I should be like, okay, why should they try this? Like, how would they
yeah,
have even known? You're like, yeah, fair
yeah.
enough.
I mean, ask them how would you solve that specific situation, and then work your way through these basic questions, and help them develop themselves, right? And only
Mm.
if you provide them freedom, and if you allow them to make mistakes and come back to you, and present their solution, and you say, maybe that's not that what I've thought about, maybe do it different. Only if you open up yourself and have and create an environment where people have no fear going to you and present something which is maybe not optimal or ideal,
Yeah.
I only then this is an environment where people can grow. If they would fear you, go to you and present you something, and they always know, okay, he will freak out again. I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I
fair.
think creating an environment of trust and allowing people to also present maybe not that good solutions. I think this is part of the journey, and people will grow. That's my experience.
Beautiful. Great. I will leave with one question. What game are you playing right now? Very curious.
Battlefield 6.
All day, every day? I'm so scared to play those games, Felix.
Every second day, I would say.
I feel so scared to play those games because I feel like I'll get addicted. I'm on Clash Royale right now, and
Okay.
I made a little joke post the other day where I have to install a thing where it's not this card, but basically I have to unlock my phone with a card now, so I get to play my Clash Royale. That's how addicted I get.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But also, I'm one of those where I'm like, I need to have a screen. Not healthy, but I'm getting better. But no, awesome.
Can relate.
Lovely. Felix, thank you so much. How can
Thank
people
you very
get in
much.
touch? What's the best way?
LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to chat about everything game related or infrastructure or tech related. Just shoot me a message.
Beautiful. And yeah, that's not a small offer as well. Like, you're a very busy man. So if anyone's listening to this podcast and you're honestly genuinely curious, take him up on the offer. Get in touch on LinkedIn. The description, well, the name of won't be. Find him on LinkedIn. Also, stuff in the descriptions. If this is interesting as well, you can check out GameFabric. I'll put all that in the description. And if you've listened so far, maybe follow, share it with a friend. Lovely. Felix, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.